Most CRO audits are a long list of opinions on a PDF file. No priorities, no clear testing plan, and most likely these will never get implemented. Today, I'll show you the exact same process we go through as a CRO agency to turn any website into a clear testing plan that can be used to improve the performance. And before I explain you exactly what we need to do to get this completed, I first want to give you a quick sneak peek of what the end result would look like. So here we have a fig jam combining all the data and all the findings that we've gathered into one single view. And what we do here is we basically have a screenshot of the pages, mobile and desktop. We annotate what's wrong and what we can improve. And eventually we'll have a whole list of IDs that we can build upon. But before we gather our IDs, we have to start with a crucial element in this process. And that is reviewing the data. Everything starts with the data because things might be wrong, but we first need to figure out where they're wrong. And that's what we're going to do first. GA4 is an excellent place to find where users might be abandoning your site, or possibly what pages are converting very well. So if you have an e-commerce business, you most likely want to figure out what product is actually bringing down your conversion rate. So if you have many products, a table like this works very well. On GA4, if you go to e-commerce purchases, here you can see a list of product names, how many times they've been viewed, added to cart, and purchased. Of course, you want to focus on the ones that have the most views, right? These are kind of the weights in your calculations. You don't want to look at the most purchased because perhaps there's a product that gets 1,000 views per day but never gets purchased. You can do this for each of the products, but you can also go to item category or item variant, or you can dive deeper into any of the other dimensions. So here in this case, we can see that the first few are having the most amount of traffic, and that's maybe also where you want to focus on the most. Because your time is limited, you cannot test or improve everything all the time. You want to focus on the ones that are most likely to bring in the most additional revenue. GA4 has a good report on this, but it doesn't show percentages. So in Looker Studio, you can actually use BigQuery or data blends using the data from GA4 to go into a lot more details. So here there's a report showing conversion rate and transaction over time. But here at the bottom, we have a report that shows the item names, the amount of users that are in that product view, and the percentage of times it has been added to cart or checked out. The other report that's very helpful in GA4 is this funnel report. This is giving you an overall view of your funnel, where users are abandoning or completing the step. So here we can see that there's a huge drop-off rate from session start to product views. Only 21% is actually seeing a certain product or all products. And then only 8% is adding it to cart. Of course, this is easier to influence than users actually adding to cart because they're observing your product, they're evaluating if this is something for them, and this helps you identify where certain gaps might be. More importantly, here at the bottom at the table, you can add more breakdowns. So in this case, we're looking at device category, which is important because users behave very differently on mobile versus desktop. So here we can see if there's a higher or lower completion rate on desktop or on mobile. If you click this explore icon, it will take you to the custom report you can build, and you can actually see the steps in more detail. And you can also change what you're breaking it down by. So now we're looking at device category, but you can add browser, a country, state, whatever you want to add. So here we can, for example, see at the bottom that the completion rate for checkout is about the same for mobile and desktop, and tablet actually converts higher on this specific step. And this is a good example of how you can find more information about the data of your site. Of course, the time you can spend on this is endless and you can get very detailed. But I give you a quick overview of how to do an analysis on GA4. The other data that you can use is a heat map. And a heat map is incredibly helpful to understand if things are going wrong on the site, but also where users move around the most, right? So where does the mouse go? Where do they click? Is there any rage click? Microsoft Clarity is a free tool that you can install on your site, and it's very good. It's good enough. If you do have some budget, I would recommend heatmap.com. They have a very interesting tool that actually shows you how much revenue is generated from users engaging with a certain element. So here we're looking at the header navigation button, and we can see there have been 1,000 clicks. But here we can also see that out of those 1,000 clicks, there's been a conversion rate of 0%. So this helps you identify which of the elements on the page actually contribute to an improved conversion rate and which ones do not. You might have a menu with 20 options. You can actually see for each of the options, how often are they clicked, how often is a click leading to a purchase, and if it's 0, it might be helpful to remove it, to have fewer options or to try to something completely different. Besides heat maps and clicks, of course, they also record the screen of the user, but it's often very hard to go through hundreds of these. So therefore, a heat map is easier to look at. Of course, don't forget to look at different devices and analyze them very differently. AI is coming into play, and heat maps and often are summarized by AI. So instead of looking at many different screens and recordings, you can just ask the AI to summarize it. So by looking at the data on reports, CSV files, databases, and the heat maps, together you already have a very good base of things that you can figure out on the site that are likely places users might be dropping off or are having issues. And once we know where the issue might be, we actually go into the page to figure out why the issue even exists. So here we go to an example page. There is a very simple framework we always use for ourselves, and we look for 4 things. We look for clarity, motivation, trust, and friction. So let's go through one by one on this page. So the first thing is clarity. We kind of want to quickly understand what it is that they're selling and how easy it is to understand that. Well, this product is not very complicated. It's just a sweater. So that's very easy to understand. But do we know how good this sweater is, what it's for? Is it for the winter, for the summer? Is it warm? Is it for a man? Is it for a woman? There are many questions that you go through yourself to figure out if this is something for you. So what we can see here is that it's for men. I don't really know if it's a warm or a cold sweater. I don't really know right away the quality of the sweater. So there is definitely an improvement they can make to better provide clarity. A good way we always implement is like having a few checkboxes here. Very easy to scan, and you can figure out right away if this is a product for you. The next one is motivation. So are there any elements on the site that would motivate me as a purchaser to purchase this product? So what I can already see here in red, only a few items left. So this already motivates me to move quickly, right? Free shipping and return, they're helping me get motivated. It's a new product. Yeah, there are definitely a few elements. The next one is trust. Can I trust this business? Can I trust this product? Am I not the first one making this purchase? It's new, not necessarily a bad thing. What we can see here too is be the first to review. That's not giving off a lot of trust signals because I don't want to be the first one making this mistake. Or maybe nobody ever buys this, then I definitely don't want to buy it. Of course, they clearly show their brand, which is definitely trusted throughout the world. So there are some good elements in place. Of course, this one is an easy one that you should hide. The next one is friction. So is there any friction going through this page that's just a bit confusing, that just makes you think twice? When I scroll down here a little bit, we see great images, a little bit more details, all looks good, goes well with, and then I see a sweater that looks similar to this. Maybe it's not, it's a hoodie, this is a sweater. Okay, so far not a lot of friction, very simple site, so not a lot of things that can go wrong. If you have, for example, a subscription business, you might see that you're not explaining clearly what a subscription actually entails, what's the user signing up for, or maybe in checkout, it's very complicated to choose a shipping method or when it will arrive. You can go through this on your site. So by going through these 4 different steps, it's very easy to identify what are things on the front end that can be improved. And on each of these 4, you can spend considerable time to figure out how can we as easily as possible explain to the user what this product is, who it's for, also who it's not for, and how can we make that user experience the best possible. After looking at the desktop, of course you want to do exactly the same, but on mobile. Don't get mistaken, the user experience is definitely different for each of the devices. Some elements might be hidden on mobile because there's less space, or maybe they might be hidden behind an accordion, or maybe they're not showing up at all. So definitely go through this on mobile, as it's very important. Especially mobile because most users are often on mobile these days, and often even more purchases are coming from mobile. So if you have to choose between mobile and desktop, definitely recommend to start on mobile. Here you have to slide through the images instead of seeing already 4 or 6 images right away. Is this enough clarity for a user? If I don't see these tiny little arrows, I'm not intrigued to look at more images. And a sweater is easy to understand, but if you sell a supplement or anything else, it's a little bit more complicated. You kind of want to intrigue the user to learn more as quickly as possible. So to add more clarity, you could add a few thumbnails here at the bottom, right? It kind of shows the user what they would click on. So if they're interested in text, they click on the text image. If they're interested in the front side of the sweater, they click on that one. You help them guide through the process a lot quicker. Add more clarity through the size guide. Is this perhaps a very complicated way for someone to understand the guide? I clicked on the link, it takes me to a different page. And of course, that's not great because every time someone has to click somewhere, you're losing half of the traffic. And especially if you're mobile, because on desktop, you can very easily go back to the other page. But on mobile, you have to click the number at the top, it opens the tabs, and you click on the other one. It's causing friction in the funnel. Instead, you would want to have a pop-up, and the pop-up, of course, explains very easily the size guide that you need. So here are just a few examples of how you can go through your site to figure out what is lacking clarity, how can we add more motivation, how can we reduce the friction, and how can we add more trust signals to the page. Again, gather all these ideas, add them to your FigJam file, and then later we have a complete list of the data and the heuristic review. I've audited more than 100 sites using exactly this framework. After looking at all these sites, there's the same problem occurring again and again. If your conversion rate isn't great, buying more traffic isn't going to solve that. So going through this audit and really figuring out where your business is actually leaking money helps to improve your business significantly, because you can improve the conversion rate, which makes buying traffic even cheaper, and the profit from that you can reinvest in the ads. That's why we always urge our clients to really spend significant time on building your house, your asset, before you fuel it with more business opportunities. Because it's a vicious loop. If the conversion rate isn't great, buying traffic is incredibly expensive. And after a few $1,000s, you're gonna quit, and that stops your funnel. If you turn it around, the performance of your site is dictated by your conversion rate. It improves the average order value, the lifetime value, more happy customers, more reviews, more repeat purchases, and that fuels your business to grow even beyond what you imagine it can be. So here I've laid it out, the exact audit that we run for our clients. It's not the framework, it's not the fancy slides or the Figma that make it work, is what you can actually find on your site that would drastically improve the performance of your funnel. And then actioning upon it, making sure you don't waste time on the ones that are not relevant. Focus on the experiments that really add value to your business, because you can only run so many in a certain month. So using that prioritization list and focusing on what comes first really nails down what you can spend your time on wisely. If you need support figuring out what is wrong with your site and how you can improve the performance through a CRO program with A/B tests, let me know in the comments or send me a message, and then we can see if I can help you out improve the performance of your store. We are so confident in what we do that we even offer a ROI guarantee. We make sure we will add business to your company. If not, we work for free. So I hope I've taught you everything about how to run a CRO audit successfully. If you have any questions, definitely let me know.